Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we're talking Rambo Last Blood today.
Which we are doing by popular demand.
Yeah, well, one person asked.
That's all it takes. We're cheap.
I forget who, but I hope you're satisfied.
It was Martin.
Who was it?
Martin Stollery.
Was it? Well,
yes.
This is for you, Martin.
Yes, this is for you, Martin.
So, Rambo. I'll tell you the very brief things that I knew about Rambo before seeing this, because I'd never watched a Rambo movie.
Oh, really?
Never. I knew that it had reputation for violence. I knew that it's based on a soldier who I think initially was supposed to have sort of PTSD, and the first one was supposed to be not kind of smart in that respect, and then it just became a violent bloodfest after that. I caught a bit of Rambo 3 on TV a couple of weeks ago just by chance, and what I saw was Rambo lying in a cave in Afghanistan. It's set in the Afghanistan-Soviet War. And he's sweaty and he's well lit and it looks like a fucking Renaissance painting. And he has this wound in his side and he cuts the tip off a bullet, pours the gunpowder into his wound, lights it, and it explodes, and that's how he cauterizes his wound. And I thought, well, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Turn it off. And then
you've seen the new Rambo.
Spoiler. And this is a spoiler coming up. If you're interested in the new Rambo, it's a spoiler. I have now seen something stupider, which is a man cutting out another man's heart and it's still beating and him showing it to him, which I thought is just something that people say, but they did it in this.
This is so stupid.
Wonderful, I thought.
It's such a...
I tell you the other thing I knew about Rambo is that when they brought it back in 2008 it had a 20-year hiatus, and Sylvester Stallone apparently rang up the UN and said, "Where's the most violent place in the world?" And they said Burma, and he went, "Right, I'll set it there." So that was his kind of methodology for bringing Rambo back a few years ago.
Well, I mean, I think, a lot of people get off on playing somebody like Stallone as stupid. And clearly he's not. He's somebody who, in fact, kind of, has been writing his own screenplays. He made himself a star. And, he is an American icon. There's no question about that. And kind of very interestingly, he's done it on the basis of two roles. Rocky and Rambo. So, and I suppose he's got another kind of series with the Expendables.
Expendables.
The Expendables.
I love when you call them the Expendables.
Well...
Or they're just getting fatter.
Anyway... I've always been very fond of Sylvester Stallone, actually. I think, I remember kind of when I was 14 or 15 and really beginning to go to the movies on my own. And that was a time when Stallone made his first movie, and John Travolta made his first movie, and Christopher Reeve came out with the Superman films. And... I felt that they were kind of my generation stars, right? That, they were different from the Warren Beattys and Redfords and other people who were big in the 70s, but, they were already established. These were the ones that came up in that first moment when I started going to the movies on my own. And there was something kind of very appealing about both Travolta and Stallone, actually. First of all, they were ethnic. They were Italian Americans. And in fact, Stallone reminded me of a lot of, people I went to high school with, right? Yo, man, that way of talking and kind of, this attempt at kind of, getting a big body, but also kind of being quite, quite gentle people in a way. So he was a type I recognized. And then, actually, one of the terrible things is what he's done with his career. So on the one hand, he's a very big star. He continues to be one. He's always been one internationally. He's done it on the basis of very few hits. Outside of his franchises. Maybe The Specialist and that there's a couple of films, Cliffhanger and so on, that have been a success, but mostly it's been like flops in between franchise films. And I just think, that at some point you got to ask yourself, kind of, why put all this shit out in the world? Because you see a film like this, and you think, I mean, it's almost like the other side of the coin of the Downton film, but both are like poison, I think. They're like putting poison in the world. You know, I think this
ideological poison.
Yes. You know, it kind of, they poison people's minds. This film's treatment of, you know, Mexicans is just horrific, right? It's kind of every negative stereotype and cliche piled one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. It's disgusting.
Everything that I sort of heard about Rambo and what Rambo became is absolutely true in this. He is playing American foreign policy. Yes. John Rambo is American foreign policy.
Oh, you see the wall throughout.
You see the wall, but it's all about Mexico. It's all about
fear of the other.
And the slogan of the film could be, you know, what Trump said. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Yes.
You know, there are like 2 good Mexicans in this.
Yes.
You know, like that could be what it is. You've got, so the film starts off with Rambo. I mean, in a way, I was disappointed because, wow, imagine being disappointed by a Rambo movie, but in a way, I was disappointed because one of the other parts of Rambo's reputation is that they kill hundreds and hundreds of people, and I thought, well, at least I'm going to see some load of stupid death. And actually, when it starts off with Rambo living on this sort of farmstead that he's kind of retired to in sort of the southern states, with this woman who appears to be, well, she seems to be kind of his maid, but I don't think that's exactly the case. She's like living with him, an old Mexican woman. But she seems to be the mother of this young girl that he looks after.
She seems to be the grandmother, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's this young 17-year-old Mexican girl who he sort of looks after, and he's her uncle, or at least he's like a family friend who's an uncle.
He's like the stepdad, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But she calls him her uncle. Anyway, the moment that you meet her, you go, oh, she's going to get kidnapped. Like, that was my immediate sort of thing. And I thought, oh, right, instead of doing Rambo, they're doing Taken. You know? Like, he's going to go and get her back. And what I didn't see coming, actually, was that she would die. I kind of thought, ultimately, she will be rescued and things will be returned to normal. So that was kind of... It's slightly subverted my expectation, I suppose. I didn't expect her to die and then him to just rampage. But there is this thing about how it occurred to me that, like, where he's living on this ranch, riding horses, is where every American thinks they'll go when they die. Like, this is heaven to an American.
Well, it's not just that. It's completely self-mythologizing.
Yeah.
So basically, Rambo has become the old Western hero who retires on the... you know, to the ranch, and all he wants to be is at one with nature, riding his horses and growing his crop, you know, and he's dragged into, you know, killing one last time.
and this thing of keeping his sort of violence under wraps, like he talks about, I'm trying to keep a lid on it every day, you know, like, but it's there underneath. But this is constructed as a kind of heaven. Every scene that you get north of the border is set in daylight, and every scene south of the border is nighttime. And it's a descent into hell. You know, so she goes there looking for her dad. Her dad's not interested, and she ends up getting kidnapped and forced into sex slavery. It's also important, I think, that she's a virgin.
Yes,
which is pointed out at one point. I mean, it's not, she doesn't say it, but her friend says, "Oh, you're still a virgin," and her silence says that she is. You know. And so there's this thing of going into hell to rescue the one good thing, the pure virginal American, you know. Well, she's Mexican, but she is Mexican, but she's clearly more comfortable north of the border.
Yeah.
And so everything. I mean, you know, you say, it's unfair to just think of Sylvester Stallone is stupid, and of course you are absolutely right. He's not a stupid person, but he makes stupid films.
He's 73 years old.
Is he really?
And he's still headlining action movies that get a worldwide release. I mean, I think, you know, one has to pay respect to that accomplishment at least, right?
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of anybody else outside of Clint Eastwood that age who is commanding, you know, an international release. I mean, you know, Robert Redford's last film went right to Netflix. The one before that didn't make anything. I mean, that generation of stars is over. They're really old. And actually, you know, it's kind of this amazing thing about Stallone that he even thinks that at 74 he can headline an action film, because this is really an action film, and he's very limited. You know, he can't move his body, right? So what he can do in an action film, and the pleasures of an action film, are very carefully couched here. Like, you know, it's all close up. It's all, you see things after they've happened or just before they've happened. You know, the cutting is excellent, but not so excellent, actually. You really see the bolts kind of sometimes. But, you know, it is quite something for a 74-year-old person, a 73-year-old person, right, to be headlining a pure kind of B action film, really.
You do sort of feel his physicality, more so I'd say in the scene where he rescues the girl and he's like smashing people up with a hammer. But he does it through ambushes, so he doesn't get into like a full-on physical fight with anyone. He comes in and smashes them and they go.
Yeah.
And then the final fight, the climactic one at his farmstead, is all done through traps. You see him set up all these traps. So actually, what does all the killing is these traps, and then he just shows up to shoot people in the head once they've been caught.
Well,
so
they have to figure out how an old man can do action.
And it is sort of smartly sort of figured out so they can do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's reasonably effective, and there is some fun in.
Actually, I think the action is reasonably effective. I think.
Some of it very violent as well, like hilariously violent.
I think I like the poppiness of it. I mean, so basically the story in a sentence is this man's hearts get destroyed when his daughter gets sold into white slavery, so in revenge he cuts out the perpetrator's heart. That's, you know, that's the movie, really.
You and your high concept.
Well, it is a high concept film. So, but I think they're really kind of, it's a very sparse movie, it's very lean, it's very beautifully lit, you know, and I think in many ways it's very effective. Like, you know, you were saying earlier, like the film is only 80 minutes long, and, you know, for you look at an hour goes by and you can't believe that it's been an hour, right? So it moves incredibly quickly. It
does move quickly. I mean, in a sense,
it's a real pop movie.
In a sense, it felt like that was because if when it got to an hour or an hour and 5 minutes, and everyone's arriving for the final fight, I kind of thought, this is it. Like, nothing's happened. So it was kind of positive because I thought, wow, this moved quickly, but also kind of negative in that I thought, like, it even felt like it had filled up so little time with even less somehow. I don't know, but I mean the speed with which it moved was a pleasure. Like, I can't imagine sort of, and I wasn't going into it dreading it, going, oh, I have to see this, the way I was with Downton Abbey. You know, I was kind of looking forward to seeing what a Rambo movie was really overall, and what the new one would be. And
when I wrote,
the fact that it wasn't 2 hours was a pleasure. The fact that I expected it to be longer. I expected to take itself more seriously in a way, and like to have a longer running time to sort of suggest its importance. And actually getting in and out is exactly what it needs. You know?
Well, I think it's a morally despicable film.
Yeah.
And actually, and I was thinking, you know, when watching it, you know, that people like him have to be held to account. So on the one hand, you know, he is an icon of American cinema, and I think really because of Rocky, I mean, kind of, you know, because Rocky was a real figure of hope. You know, the kind of, this guy from nowhere and the end of a complete loser, you know, but he's kind of work and determination and so on, kind of, you know, bring him close to victory, make him, you know, transforms him. And there's a whole kind of ethos there about, like, you know, his relationship with Adrian, his wife, yeah, like, and, you know, the going up through Philadelphia, the steps of Philadelphia and so on. I mean, you know, there's the thing about kind of, there's something generous and hopeful about that character, at least in the first one. And then really it's been like shit after shit, nasty shit, right? Like, you know, killing foreigners here, killing foreigners there. I mean, he doesn't have a decent film in his whole film. He doesn't have, you know, so Rocky is not a great film, but it's his best film, really. You know, well, maybe, you know, yeah.
Rocky Balboa was good as well, I'd say. When he was older and wanted to come back into the fight. And again, that kind of had that similar generosity, I think, of saying, you know, you have to do what you want to do and no one can stop you and all that sort of stuff.
I think the Creed films have a bit of that, but, you know, but he's used there. You know, he's not the driving force behind them, and he's a marginal figure. But you know, you just look at his filmography, and you know, this is a person who has put a lot of poison out into the world, a lot of shit. You know, is it worth it, Sly? You know, and the thing about this film that's so disgusting is that it's so also self-mythologizing, right? So you know, he's there under the tree. I mean, my God, you know, when they complain about like women being demanding in terms of hair, makeup, and lighting, I mean, I wonder what he demanded because, you know, I mean, he's lit like a painting in every shot, right? And there's something weird about his face, you know. So on the one hand, the lips are the same, you know, but the eyes are different. He always had like wonky kind of Pierrot eyes in a way. You know, and he's clearly had so much work done that it's like, you know, it's like a memory of his face, really. And of course, it doesn't mean that he's ageless. You still see all the age in him, right? But there was a moment where the camera turned to black and white, or gave the impression of black and white. And you say, you know, it's like all the bone structure there, and in black and white, you know, he could have mythologized himself a bit further, you know. But there's something kind of unpleasant about the whole exercise.
Yeah.
And it's an ugly film. And actually, I was really crushed to see Paz Vega, who's, you know, this great Spanish actress, playing the role of the reporter. I mean, you know, kind of, it's like a form of collaboration or something with the enemy.
You do kind of feel that. I mean, there's a thing about how Mexico generally is represented in American media, not just film, but TV as well. That is fictional media rather than like news media, and how it's, you know, very, very often, overwhelmingly, Mexico is a source of criminal enterprise, you know, in one way or another, and Mexicans who get roles in American film and TV generally are playing criminals of some sort.
Yes.
And, you know, there is a way in which you could look at that as a form of collaboration, but also these people are working actors who are trying to get any role they can, and sort of turning down roles is not necessarily an option.
I also think there's a difference between people. I mean, I don't blame actors for accepting roles. I mean, you know, people have to work, you know, they have to live. But I think there's a difference between, you know, actors who, you know, need a job, and actually kind of well-known actors who can wait for the next role. And I'm disappointed in Paz Vega, actually, you know, because she is one of the big stars of Spanish cinema. You know, she didn't need to take this role, even if it is kind of an American film. And aside from that, she's completely wasted in it. You know,
yeah,
so
that's definitely.
I'm sure she took the role for the money, but it's an ugly enterprise.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to say. I suppose what I was going to say was just that you kind of spoke of it as basically a B movie. And that really occurred to me. It's very, I say cheaply made. It cost $50 million. Now, who exactly knows where that money went?
25 of that must have gone to Stallone, because I don't see 50 million.
It is extremely cheaply made. It's not like the sets are sort of falling apart, but as you say, it's sparse. It only has a couple of real locations.
Yes.
The camera is, you know, has that digital smear that I've talked about before, that real cheapness of look. And actually, I kind of thought, like, if you think about that 80s stable of action people, you got Stallone, you got Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, Steven Seagal, and like the biggest of those, Schwarzenegger and Stallone, kind of kept making hits.
Yes.
And compare them to Steven Seagal, who made straight-to-video movie after straight-to-video movie like Flight of Fury and Executive Decision. The only difference between this and Executive Decision is that this made it into a cinema. It really is that cheap and bad and simple. I mean, a simpler film you couldn't imagine.
Yes, though I must say, I think there is an elegance in the filmmaking as well. You know, like, yes, the shots are very sparse, you know, but there are clever compositions, you know. I thought the lighting was very beautiful.
Yeah, I suppose I agree with that.
And kind of necessary, because there is this attempt at mythologizing both Rambo and Stallone. It's no accident that, you know, all the credit sequences are images of him in the previous Rambo films, right? Kind of looking young and glamorous. So there was First Blood, and now this is Last Blood, right? So I think kind of, the whole thing is designed in an elegiac vein, right? So I think the sparseness, the outdoorsness, the horses, the sky, the open sky, all of that is to imbue him with the same kind of symbolic meaning as John Wayne or something like that, kind of Rambo comes home from Vietnam, and from Afghanistan, and now from Mexico. Though the United States is only culturally at war with Mexico, not de facto.
Well, I mean, that occurred to me as well. Like, I suppose in the other films, there were wars that he was taking part in, and this is a personal fight that he has. He's not acting for the state in any sense in this film.
No.
Which he was in, I'm sure, at least some of the others.
But the film has a view on Mexico, which is really disgusting. Who is the director, by the way?
The director, I was just looking him up, is Adrian Grunberg, who's directed Get the Gringo. I think he wrote and directed that. That was a Mel Gibson thing from 7 years ago, which I never saw. But that, the title at least suggests it's got Mexican elements.
Right.
Yeah, here we are. This is IMDb's blurb. A career criminal nabbed by Mexican authorities is placed in a tough prison where he learns to survive with the help of a young boy. And he's assistant directed on quite a lot of things. But this is second or third kind of major directorial project.
Okay, so...
He's assistant directed on Narcos, Sense8, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, a bunch of things.
That's interesting because it does have that sparseness of television as well, but very well used though.
Well, I mean, I think it would be unfair to... It is definitely cinematic.
It is. I mean, frankly, visually, in comparison to Downton Abbey, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. And to be fair, in comparison to all those cigar movies I picked up, it is better than those. I mean, maybe I'm being a little unfair. But ideologically and in terms of kind of plot complexity, character complexity, it's offering nothing intelligent.
Yes.
I know you talk about it kind of mythologizing, but I don't think that's necessarily smart. It's, if anything, it's
vain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a typical vanity production. I mean, he's 73. He's clearly still doing weights, but he's clearly also stiff and immobile. And frankly, kind of whether he's doing weights, I'm sure he's got a fantastic body for a 73-year-old. But it's a 73-year-old's body, and you can look, and so I think, he doesn't show it to you. He never takes his shirt off the way that he would have done in all the other films. The
way he did in that shot in Rambo 3 that I saw, which was all about him with his top off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But actually kind of even dressed, so his body as an expressive element is gone, right? So everything relies on his face. Right, which I think is he's a beautiful man. I think he still looks beautiful in some shots, but it is a face that's semi-frozen, right? And I also found his eyes weird because, and this is maybe just me, because I always associate him with dark eyes. When I think of him in the Rocky films, I think of him as having brown eyes, right? And in this film, they were light, right? So. I just thought it was kind of weird.
I didn't pick up on that, I must say. What I did pick up on in terms of his physicality is the size of his arms. And there's one shot actually right at the end when he's killed everyone and he's pinned the baddie to the wall with arrows, because that's what you do. And he approaches him, and there's like a shot from the front, and there's a shot from sort of 3/4 from behind, and it's low down, and you see the size of his right arm, and it's also covered in blood, and it's kind of sinewy and sort of high contrast, and you see all the detail in dirt and things. But the size of it is sort of, like maybe he can't move the way he did, but he is physically still intimidating. And it's funny because you say he's 73 years old, and I didn't know that, and I suppose I could have figured it out. But he doesn't look like other 73-year-olds. Obviously, he's in bodybuilder shape still, but he seems to age differently. I'm not saying he looks younger than 73.
I think the first Rocky film was either 75 or 77, something like that.
75, I think. Yeah.
So he's been a star for 45 years.
Yeah.
So so hats off to him. But couldn't he have made one really good movie in that whole career?
Well, let's just have a quick look at his filmography, because apart from Rambo,
I think I can tell you, which ones I've liked, but I honestly don't think there's a great movie in them.
Except would be definitely gone.
Except maybe the Creed, but I'd have to see it again.
I must say, I have a real soft spot for Rocky Balboa, which was the 2006 one, I think, when he brought Rocky back. I like that film an awful lot.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's got all these Rockies. Ant, I love Ant. Judge Dredd. Cliffhanger.
Okay.
I sat in the Judge Dredd car. It was made by Land Rover.
I saw it. It was a terrible film. So he's done 84 movies. That's amazing. And let me start. Since he became a star... Okay, Rocky's 1976 is what I've got.
76, right.
Yeah. So Fist, Paradise Alley flops, though Fist is an interesting film. Then he returned to Rocky 2. Nighthawks, blah... Victory,
Escape to
Disaster.
Victory. But I've got a real soft spot for Escape to Victory.
Well, British people do.
Exactly.
But,
He saved a penalty from Pele. Or, no, from a German. But anyway.
So First Blood, Rhinestone with Dolly Parton, atrocious. Then he returned. So Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Rocky 4, then Cobra, which was a big hit, and it was in the vein of the Rambo films. Then Lock Up, which I've seen. To be fair, Lock Up, Tango and Cash were kind of mild hits, yeah, and I think Tango and Cash was a big success internationally. Then he tried comedy with disastrous results in Oscar and Stop or My Mom, which actually it's amazing how I've seen all of these.
You're a big fan. So
Cliffhanger I thought was really good. Demolition Man I thought was really good. I enjoyed The Specialist. I enjoyed Assassins very much, but none of those are great films, right?
You just have very low standards.
They're just kind of enjoyable genre films, and then all the rest of the stuff. I mean,
he was in Men in Black.
That must have been a cameo or something. So, and then like the rest of the films, my God, I don't, I hardly recognize them. So he returns to Rocky Balboa in 2006, another Rambo in 2008. Then he begins The Expendables, which I've seen all of them, and really, kind of, it's pretty bad. They're also pretty bad. Mm. So anyway, there you go. It's like it's a very sad filmography of someone who once meant something culturally. I mean, the impact that he had with Rocky, you can't understate that. And actually, you can't understate that in relation also to kind of immigrant kids or even not immigrant kids. I mean, if you were an Italian American or a something American, in those years when John Travolta and Sylvester Stallone became stars, they really meant something, right? And I think kind of, people of a certain generation, kind of are very fond of them because of what they once meant. And then to kind of throw all that away on this filmography, to not try to do anything better, than this kind of sad list of, mediocre films is really heartbreaking.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of returning to the mine that has proven itself to work.
It's just money-making stuff, right? And how much money does one need?
in Men in Black, he was shown on the monitor as a registered alien. Turns out he's an alien. It's just a cameo thing.
All right. Well, there you go.
He's an alien, and which backs up what I said, frankly, in that he doesn't age like other humans.
Well, he's done a lot of work, and clearly he's a very disciplined person, But actually, he's also someone who has pretensions to being an artist. He paints, It's kind of like part of what makes him a sensitive man. And I was thinking, how could you?
Yeah, it's like Russell Crowe writing his poetry.
To be an artist and put so much fucking shit in the world.
Do you remember Russell Crowe punched the director of the Oscars for cutting out his poem? Maybe it wasn't the Oscars, maybe it was the Emmys or Globes or something. But this was years ago. This is like Gladiator era, I think. He wrote a lovely poem and wanted everyone to hear it. And they cut it out of the broadcast, and so he punched the director.
Well.
Because he's so sensitive.
Anyway, we should end this, really. I mean, there's not much more to say.
Yeah. I don't hate the fact that I saw it. It's an ideological project, and it's something to learn from, but I do wonder how successful it'll be, even playing to stupid people.
I think there's always a market for this type of action, and I think actually the action, I did find it effective, and the whole melodrama is melodramatic beyond belief, and I think in a way that works, those scenes with the women kind of, being enslaved and brutalized. I mean, my God, I could barely watch. It was horrible, There's a bit where she dies in the car on the way back, and it's very sad. And he's talking to her, and she dies of her sort of wounds and drug that she's been given, and then Rambo sort of very quietly says to himself, "Why not me?" And I was like, "Because you're Rambo. Because she's a little girl and you're a 9'5" gorilla." He's not 9'5".
Really?
No.
What a surprise! Maybe I was exaggerating for comic effect.
But also, he's famously short.
Yeah.
So
he never looks it though in his movies. It's one of those things. Like I thought Tom Hardy was tall, and he's not. He's shorter than I am. Sometimes they film you that way, weirdly. Tom Cruise is the only one who can't make himself look tall.
That's true.
He always looks... I'll tell you what it is with Tom Cruise. It's because he insists on like genuinely running in all his movies. He will run, and he wants you to see that he's running. So he'll have a shot from a long way away with his whole body that shows him running really hard, and you can't make yourself look tall when you see your whole body.
No.
If he would just be a little bit less sort of keen to be active, he could make himself look, like the Burj Dubai. It's made $35 million domestic so far.
And is this the first week of its release?
Yes, released September 20th, which is a week and a half ago, actually.
Okay, well that's not bad.
Actually, more than that. I mean, this is the 3rd of October, so it must be 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
Not amazing.
Well, not amazing, but not bad, actually.
It'll have a life on streaming services. It's that
the thing
kind of
is,
movie.
I just can't believe that it cost $50 million. I don't believe it. I don't. And if it cost $50 million, I bet you Stallone pocketed 40 of it. Because there's no way that this film cost more than like £10 million. Yeah. It's like there are Hong Kong producers and there's like Middle Eastern producers and so on. So, the financing has been stitched up from a whole variety of places. I mean, this has more executive producers than one can shake a stick at. But within all of that, I think if the stated budget is $50 million, I bet you a lot of that was for Stallone, because you don't see a budget. I mean, my God, even the leading lady, it's like, I mean, Pat Vega, if you're Spanish, she's a big star, but nobody in America will know her from Adam, right? Like, so there's not even any money spent. All the supporting cast...
That's even if you can class her as a leading lady.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the young girl has more of a role.
That's right. They've all got, like, very minor roles here. So there's not another name actor in the cast, really. So nothing has been spent above the line. The director is a newbie. Right, so where has the money gone? The sets are very simple and straightforward. Very few locations. The shots are not expensive ones. The sets are minimal. So where has that 50 million gone if that's the real budget? I don't believe
Horse wrangling. They had to find a horse big enough to carry Sylvester Stallone.
They were probably his own horses.
Yeah. I mean, think what the horse has been injected with.
Ugh, let's not go there.
Anyway, Yvette Monreal is plays the girl.
Though the horses were disgusting, because I thought, so much love for a horse and so little for your fellow human being.
Well, but that's always the way, isn't it? I mean, I thought that in when we saw Apocalypse Now the other day, the scene where they fire on the boats and all the people die immediately, but none of the chickens. There's a whole bucket full of chickens, and not one of them dies. And then they save a puppy on it.
But that's part of the point, though.
No, sure, but it's still if with all those bullets spraying somewhere, you thought one of those chickens would have copped it.
It's important that it's a point that the director is making in Apocalypse Now. Yeah, you're killing all these people, and then you're cuddling this puppy. This is not self-conscious in that way, and it's not critical.
No, I don't have a problem. I mean, I didn't have that problem with the puppy, but I definitely had that problem with the chickens. One of those chickens would have died. Just saying. Killing animals in movies is always a big deal.
To me, I think you're losing the point because, you're now talking about that Apocalypse Now and kind of losing sight here in this discussion, about this Rambo film that is quite heinous, really. But the way that it idealizes these beautiful animals and, what they represent. And, there's actually 3 minutes given to, him releasing them into the wild so they won't be hurt and they can be free. This is followed by killing 300 people.
There's not 3 minutes given to him releasing them. That's 2 shots. But
you're devoted to long shots, and actually you have him waving the thing, and it's 2 extended shots. Okay, spaced out.
But you see, it's in that montage where he's setting up the thing for the traps, and he sends her away as well. Sends the woman away. But the point I'm getting to, I mean, I think you're right up to a point, but I also think. And I'm being kind of glib about Apocalypse Now as well, but the point that I'm ultimately making is it's always a big deal, no matter what the film, to kill an animal.
Yes.
Much bigger than it is with humans, always.
Well, depending on how you treat humans, I don't think it's always, more important than the way you kill humans. No, it's not.
I don't mean the way you kill humans, I just mean the fact of killing. You just see it, you tend to see it
in most Westerns, humans are given much more weight than the horses.
Yeah, but then do you see the horses die very often?
Yes. Yes, I mean, all the Indian fights in the Western, you see horses fall everywhere you go. Yes, maybe. It's a staple. So, I just think there's something actually kind of disgusting in the way that this film treats Mexicans.
Well, yeah, that's certainly true.
And then kind of, that sense of disgust is made even more bilious, but in contrast with, the way that he treats the horses. I'm not saying he should have abused the horses, but actually, the horses are there partly to signify something about him and something that is very dishonest. You can't be so feeling about freedom and liberty and open air and these beautiful animals cavorting in it and then just, kill 300 people.
But I think part of the reason that it's ideologically ugly is the fact that it so kind of marries up with actually how America thinks.
Well, that's true. There's no question about that.
It's not just that the film thinks that; it's that it reflects what America thinks, and not all of America, not individual Americans necessarily, but the guy in the White House is the guy who said these things about Mexicans.
The reason why I find this film poisonous is because actually it's reinforcing the worst of American culture at the moment, and it's siding with the powerful against the powerless. That's what it's doing, and that's why it's so disgusting. That Sylvester Stallone is contributing to what really are, the worst parts of American culture.
Yeah. So, despite the fact we found some pleasures, a horrible film.
Yes. Don't go. Fuck him.
Yeah. We just needed the next Rambo film. It's going to turn out that he has a black friend, and the black friend will become the new Rambo, and it'll be nice and woke, like Creed.
Well, ostensibly there won't be another one. This is the last blood.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
the first one was First Blood, and then they had First Blood Part 2, so they can't do titles.
Well, you say that, But actually, the only reason he has a career is because he's stuck to those titles. So,
I think Rambo has to end with him actually dying at some point, and it'll be, and you know, as much as you talk about mythologizing Rambo in this, you will vomit your guts up when he dies in the next one.
No way.
Rambo.
I feel personally that it wouldn't be any loss at all if he were to retire from the screen forever. As I said, you know, I really loved him as a kid. And, you know, I think you look at his filmography and you think it's a real betrayal of that love that audiences had for him. You know, he went for from representing, kind of things that were admirable, and it's what made him a star and what attracted people to him. And then, he's just, again, sided with the powerful against the powerless and done schlock, kind of ramping up the kind of cheap patriotism for the rest of his career, and it is truly disgusting.
Here endeth the lesson.
Yes. Goodbye. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.